There's a good chance the most boring man who ever lived was a philosopher named Immanuel Kant. For over 40 years, his life in a small Prussian town ran on a schedule of terrifying precision. He would wake at 5 a.m. exactly. He would write for exactly 3 hours, lecture at the university, and then, at precisely 3:30 p.m., he would go for a walk. The same walk. Down the same street, which is still known today as the Philosopher's Walk. His routine was so rigid, so unchanging, that his neighbors joked they didn't need clocks. They could set their watches by the moment Immanuel Kant passed their window. Perhaps the most telling detail of this man's life is this. The Baltic Sea was just an hour's drive from his home. An entire ocean, vast and majestic. And in his 80 years on this planet, he never once went to see it. And yet, this man, from inside the same four walls, in the same small town, did more to shape our modern world than almost any king, emperor, or general in history. That feeling you have, deep down, that you have individual rights, that you are not just property of the state, you can thank Kant. The entire intellectual framework for modern democracy, for the United Nations, for animal rights, he pioneered them, often 150 years ahead of their time. His thoughts on the nature of space and time became a direct inspiration for a young Albert Einstein. So how does a man who never saw the ocean, who lived a life of extreme monotony, revolutionize the world? This question, this paradox, it's the key. Finding the answer to that paradox changed my life. I'm Sam Carter, and for a long time I felt trapped by a sense of confusion about my own path. This single idea from a man who lived 200 years ago provided more clarity than anything else I've ever found. It boils down to one rule for life, a rule that once you truly understand it will change the way you see everything. Kant's quest was for something he called a categorical imperative. It's a fancy term for a simple idea. He wanted to find a moral rule that was universally true. Not true sometimes, or if you feel like it, but true for all people, in all situations, at all times. A moral North Star. To find it, he started with a fundamental question. What is the most valuable thing in the universe? Is it gold? Is it happiness? Is it power? Kant argued it was none of those. The most scarce, precious, and miraculous resource in the entire known universe is rational consciousness. The ability to look at the world and at yourself and to think. Without it, the universe might as well just be a collection of silent, unthinking rocks. It is consciousness that gives everything else value. Therefore, he reasoned, any and all morality must be built on the foundation of preserving and honoring consciousness. After wrestling with this for years, he finally formulated his one universal rule. Act in such a way that you treat humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of any other, never merely as a means to an end, but always at the same time as an end. Let's break that down. It all hinges on two words, means and ends. Think about a hammer. A hammer has no value in and of itself. Its entire purpose is to be a means to an end, in this case, hanging a picture on your wall. You use the hammer. You don't ask the hammer for its permission. You don't worry about the hammer's feelings. It's a tool. This is perfectly fine for objects. An end, on the other hand, is something that is valuable for its own sake. The picture on the wall gives you joy just by being there. It is the destination. So, if I want a burrito, the burrito is my end. Getting in my car and driving to the store is the means. The car is just a tool to get me to my goal. This seems simple enough, obvious even, but this is where it gets weird. Let's apply this to people. Let's say I want to make my wife happy. She feels good, I feel good seeing her happy. In this case, I am treating her happiness as an end in itself. I am valuing her conscious experience for its own sake. According to Kant, this is a moral good. But what if I buy her flowers and tell her she's beautiful only because I want to get laid? The end I'm actually pursuing is sex. Her happiness is no longer the goal. It has become a means. It's just a button I'm pushing to get the result I want. I am using her. I am treating her like a tool. Notice that feeling, that slightly slimy, manipulative feeling you get from that second example? That feeling of yikes, that is the core of what Kant is talking about. That is your moral intuition screaming that a conscious being is being treated like an object. And he argued this single dynamic, using a person's consciousness as a tool to get something else, is the root of all unethical behavior. It's what makes lying wrong. It's what makes manipulation wrong. It's what makes violence wrong. But here is where Kant's idea goes from a useful ethical rule to a radical, life-altering revelation. He says, treat humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of any other, in your own person. The most frequent, most violated victim of this rule isn't someone else, it's you. You treat yourself as a means to an end all the time. And according to Kant, this isn't just unproductive or unhealthy, it's fundamentally unethical. Let's take laziness, procrastination. Mindlessly scrolling through TikTok for 3 hours when you know you should be doing something else. What's actually happening there? You have an end, a quick, cheap hit of dopamine, a moment of pleasant distraction. And what is the means you are using to achieve that end? You are using your own mind, your attention, your consciousness. You are treating the most sophisticated and powerful tool in the known universe as a simple pleasure receptacle, a dopamine dispenser. It's like owning a Formula One race car, a miracle of engineering capable of incredible feats, and leaving it to rust in the garage, only starting it up once in a while to listen to the radio. You are disrespecting the very nature of the machine. You are using your own consciousness as a means to the end of cheap comfort. It's a violation against your own potential. Let's take addiction or any form of escapism. When you drink to forget your problems, you are pursuing an end, the state of being numb, of not having to feel. And the means you are using to get there is your own rational mind. You are actively using alcohol to degrade your own consciousness, to shut it down, to turn it off. You are treating your mind as an obstacle to be neutralized in pursuit of the end of not thinking. It is a profound act of self-disrespect. But the most subtle and perhaps most pervasive example is people-pleasing. When you bite your tongue when you should speak up, when you say yes to something your entire being is screaming no to, when you carefully curate your words and actions not to express what's true, but to get a specific reaction from someone else, what are you doing? Your end is to be liked, to receive social approval, to avoid conflict. And the means you are using to achieve that end is yourself. You are treating your authentic self as a thing to be suppressed and manipulated in exchange for a pleasant response. You are using you as a bargaining chip. And it gets worse. In that moment, you're not just using yourself, you're using them too. You are manipulating their perception to get what you want, denying them the chance to interact with the real you. It's a slow poison. It seems harmless at first, a small compromise here, a white lie there. But over time, this poison erodes the foundation of trust and authenticity. The very connection you are trying to preserve with your pleasing is the first thing to die, leaving behind a hollow relationship built on a mirage of who you pretended to be. Which of these hits harder? The idea that laziness is a moral failure, or that people-pleasing is a form of manipulation? I'm genuinely curious what you think, so let me know in the comments. Now, if all of this feels harsh, if it stings a little bit, you should know something crucial about Immanuel Kant. He wasn't born this way. He wasn't a productivity robot from birth. In his youth and early adulthood, Kant was a socialite. He was known for being witty and popular. He stayed up late playing cards, he enjoyed fine wine. It was a man about town. It wasn't until he turned 40 that he deliberately adopted his famous rigid routine. It wasn't his nature, it was a choice. Why? Because, as he put it, he realized the moral implications of wasting his own consciousness. He understood that his time and his mind were finite, sacred resources, and he refused to treat them as a means to simple, fleeting pleasures any longer. He called this conscious choice developing character. This was an epiphany for me. For years, I pursued self-improvement. I read the books, I listened to the podcasts, I tried the morning routines and the ice baths, but it always felt hollow. It felt like a transaction. I was doing these things so that I could be more successful, more liked, more productive. My own self-improvement was a means to an external end, and it left me feeling empty. Kant's work showed me that I had it all backwards. The why you do something is infinitely more important than the what you do. Self-improvement isn't about becoming a better tool to get more stuff. It is the end in itself. The very act of honoring your own consciousness, of developing your potential, that is the point. Until you find that purpose, you've found nothing. And this leads to his final, powerful conclusion. Kant argued that the only logical, truly effective way to improve the world is to first improve yourself. Why? Because your own mind is the only part of the universe you can ever truly know and ever truly control. Everything else is outside of you. This isn't a selfish act. It creates a ripple effect. When you commit to being more honest with yourself, you naturally become more honest with others. When you treat your own consciousness with respect, you can't help but treat others with that same respect. Your integrity becomes a quiet force that inspires integrity in those around you, which in turn inspires it in others. This slow, steady snowball of personal character creates more positive, lasting change in the world than any law, protest, or political movement ever could. This is why self-love and self-care are not just wellness trends, they are a moral duty. Harming yourself is just as ethically repugnant as harming someone else. Lying to yourself is just as wrong as lying to others. Wasting your potential is a transgression against the very miracle of consciousness itself. To develop character is to master yourself. Kant believed it was the only work truly worth doing. So, the final question is, will you work towards it? If wrestling with questions like this is what you're here for, consider subscribing to the channel. And if you've found value in this conversation, hitting the like button is the simplest way to help others find it too.